So welcome everybody to another ABC Transcription Tools webinar. This time I'm going to be focusing on the offline use of the tool, which is something I've been working on now for probably well over a month. And the idea here is that most people think about using things on the web when they're actually connected to the internet. So we're sort of used to this idea of like, oh, when I'm in airplane mode, I can't access anything on the web. I can't use my browser. And technology on the browsers has really changed in the last probably 3 to 4 years to enable, and this is getting a little bit technical, but I won't go into too much depth, but there's this concept of what's called a progressive web app. And, or you see these referred to as PWAs. And what they are is that it's possible now, if you put your code together correctly and include the right sort of metadata about it, it's possible so that the browser will actually, and it's a combination of the browser and code you write, it'll actually, the first time you run a tool, you can have it so that the tool will effectively cache all of its code and all the resources it needs to run in a special storage area, in a special cache inside your browser that's dedicated for your particular URL. So that when you go to the URL for the tool, it says, oh, I've seen this before, and I'm now going to let this component actually serve up the app from the browser. And it doesn't matter whether it's online or offline. So what happens is on these tools is the very first time you run them on your browser, they will set up what's called a service worker. The service worker is a little component that's a little piece of JavaScript that lives inside your browser that's associated with your particular URL. And when you go to that URL, it will then say, hey, service worker, do you have the code for this tool? And if it does, it says, oh yeah, here you go. Here's all the HTML and JavaScript and CSS files required to run the tool. And it doesn't even have to go to the internet. It'll ask the tool first to deliver itself. So the first one of these I ever ran into, and I'd never seen one before, is that there's a tool for, I don't know if anybody out here uses a thing called TunePal. TunePal is one of these apps. It's an actual like app that you install, but it's also a website. But the way I knew it was an app that you put on your phone, and you run this thing and you play a tune into it on an instrument, and then it'll tell you the name of the tune. And then somebody did this website called folkfriend.app, and I'll put that in the chat. And this was the first time I'd ever run into into one of these offline enabled web tools. And I was just amazed because the first time you run this thing, it would put itself in your browser. And if you were on a portable device, you could actually make a desktop icon for it. There's a way in iOS, I don't know how it works in Android, but in iOS you can actually go to a website and you can say create home screen icon, and it'll actually create an icon on the desktop that looks just like an app. And then when you're offline, it would run. And I'm like, this is a website that runs offline. This is very interesting. How does this work? So I started doing investigation into how they did what they did and learning all about these progressive web apps. And I decided at that point, naively, to try to convert my tool into that, because I thought this would be really nice if people could, didn't have to be connected to the internet, and they're in a pub and they've got their, I mean, the more common case is going to be on mobile devices, but anybody who's anywhere with it, has the app, may want to be able to run it offline. So I successfully did that over the course of the last 4 weeks. And it's a complicated thing to do because there's not only the problem of initially getting the thing stored so that it'll work offline, but then there's how do you handle updates? Like when I want to push an update out, how do I replace the version that's stored with the new version? How do I manage all of the instruments when you're playing offline? Do I even allow you to play offline? Because the instruments so my tool is based on a library called ABCJS, and ABCJS, I have 7 sound fonts. Each of those sound fonts has 128 sounds. Each of those sounds has about 100 notes. And I have about 15 custom instruments that have like maybe 100 notes each. So it's not, and this whole thing is about, like, all of those notes are like 4 GB, and so it's not conceivable that you're going to need, first off, you're probably not going to need all of those sound fonts and all those instruments. So ABCJS, the engine that underlies the tool, when it plays a tune, it actually goes out and it looks at all the notes and instruments that are specified in the ABC, and it pulls them from the internet as required. So, for example, if you're playing a tune like, you know, a traditional tune like, I don't know, Coolies or something, it's going to look for the, you know, 11 notes out of all the possible notes, and let's say they're in a piano sound, and it's going to go out to the internet and it's going to go grab those piano sounds from a remote site. And Paul Rosen has some of the sound fonts in his site, and I have some of them on my site. So one of the first things I did a long time ago was to speed that process. Is I started putting those notes in a database, so that the first time, once you actually got a note from the internet, you didn't have to go get it again. So that was something I did before I ever enabled the online tool, and part of that was just to speed the building of, you know, of some of these very, very complicated demos that I do. So, you know, when I'm doing like an entire Copland piece, or you know, a Bach concerto or something, you know, there could be hundreds of notes involved, and it would take maybe 30 seconds for ABCJS to build that. And by putting all the notes in the database the first time they're seen, it speeds things up. But it also created the infrastructure required to be able to use the tool offline, because now the notes that you use are actually stored locally. So so I had the ability to store the notes, and I had and then I learned how to do this progressive web app thing. And then what I decided to do was to keep the two very separate. And the reason for that is that even though this progressive web app stuff and offline use for browsers is pretty robust, it's still a little bit on the slightly bleeding edge of what's possible in web browsers today. And once you cut over to the main tool being one of these offline enabled tools, like if I made the main abctools.html that everybody's been using now without, you know, very happy with, and is working with all the tunebooks and the thousands, and I get like, I keep track of these things, I get like thousands of people using this thing each week. The last thing I wanted to do was to introduce some major disruptive change and suddenly find out that, oh my God, there's something I didn't know, and there's been a lot of those in this process that's going to break everybody's experience. So I decided I'm going to keep them parallel. I'm going to keep the online version, which is for most people, and I can tell you from the numbers, most people are using it online and they're fine with that. They're always connected to the internet. They're using it on their desktop computers at home, or they're using it on a mobile device that's, you know, got 5G or whatever. So I'm leaving that one alone, and I'll maintain them separately. And then I have a separate version that is the app version, that is the offline enabled version, that has all of this stuff about the automatic updating, and has more controls over the database, the notes stuff, because once you start working offline, and you want to have the ability to play with lots and lots of instruments, then you have to take some responsibility for managing which notes are actually stored in the tool. And I provide some, and I'll demonstrate all those tools. I provide some really simple tools to do that. And for a lot of people, it'll probably never be an issue. Like, I think most people, they probably just use, if they're working with the tunebooks, they're working with 2 or 3 instruments and a handful of notes. I'm not doing that because I'm pushing this thing crazy, and I'm doing all kinds of crazy demos, and I've got, you know, a lot of different instruments. So I needed a way to manage them, and I'll show you how all that works. So I'm going to go ahead and do some screen sharing here, and let's see, we want, yeah, that'll be fine. All you have to do is you just literally go to that URL. This michaeleston.com/app even is enough, and that will get you, like if you just go to michaeleston.com/app, it will redirect to the offline version of the tool, and we are in the offline version of the tool now. The tool runs entirely in the browser. It doesn't try to look like a native app. What it is it's just that it's, at this point, it's actually been stored in the browser. So anyway, this is the offline version of the tool, and if you notice, it looks exactly the same as the normal version. The only difference is that if I actually go offline, I'm going to tell Firefox to go offline. You'll see that it changes here and says offline mode, so it lets you know that it's offline. And when you're offline, there are certain things that it will not allow you to do, because there are a few features that do depend on some external services, like if you're doing a share link. So for example, if you're sharing and you want to shorten a URL, the URL shortener is actually a different service, and that isn't available, of course, when you're online, because I can't control I can't control their offline availability. But basically, the tool works exactly the same. The code base is exactly the same as far as the core functionality of the tool. Just the main thing being that like I'm offline right now, and I can still play these tunes. Oh, I need to enable sound in the share. Hold on a second here. I will stop sharing and reshare. I always forget to do that you have to actually tell it. Where is it? Share sound.
We actually heard it, so.
Oh, well, you heard it because it was coming through the microphone.
Fine, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. You should be able to hear a little better now. Let's see. So yeah, so the tool from a use standpoint, whether you're online or offline, will work exactly the same. So for example, I'm actually offline right now, again, evidenced by, I'll go offline and it'll say offline mode, and I can still do all the normal stuff. I can export, PDF files. I'll generate a PDF of this with play links, and we'll go ahead and generate a PDF. So like I say, in terms of using the tool, the experience will be using it offline exactly the same as using it online in terms of the normal stuff that people want to do with the tool. But the main thing is the ability to use the playback when you're offline. And I'm going to just kind of show you the features that are specific to that. Now, the thing you have to know is you have to, in order to run it offline, you have to run it online once, right? Because it has to be able, or you can't be offline, never gone to the offline available tool and try to run it while you're not connected to the internet, because it never will have the opportunity to install itself in your browser. So when you are offline, by default, I'm going to turn the feature off here and I'm going to show you what it sounds like. So by default, normally, I'm going to set an instrument here. Let me clear this. I'm going to use this Bach two-part invention. So the Bach two-part invention is set up to use a harpsichord sound. And if I go ahead and play it, you'll hear it's harpsichord. Let me just make sure I'm actually, yes, I'm online. Okay, so if I play it, I should get harpsichord. Now, if you go offline, by default, I'm going to go ahead and go offline. By default, what it will do is it will switch to using just a piano sound, because one of the problems is like I said, there's no way that the tool can load instruments when it's offline. Like, they're just not available. So by default, when you're offline, unless you've, and I'm going to show you how to work around, how to change something so that you can play any instrument, it'll set it up so that when we play offline, it's going to use a piano sound. And the other sound that's available offline are the percussion sounds, so that you can have a metronome while you're offline. This allows you to use the tune trainer while offline and not even thinking about which instruments are available or not available. So this will be the piano with the click from the percussion sound. So if someone goes offline with this version and doesn't do anything else and tries to play any tune, so if I try to play, if I clear this and I bring in my Bach, let me bring in the Bach organ Fantasia, it's going to be 4 voices of piano instead of organ. And this is because I have two instruments that I actually save as part of the code, just that are small enough that I don't, you know, it doesn't take up a lot of space, and I can keep them around always offline. Where things get more interesting is if I actually do want to hear that organ sound when I'm offline, but I have to be able to get those notes for the organ sound stored. So what happens, as I mentioned, when you're online, we'll go back online. When you first play a tune, when it goes and it gets all of the notes, and this happens, you probably noticed that when you click play on a tune, there's a brief period of time, if the notes have never been seen before, where the play bar is gray, and you might get a spinner, and then it turns black. During that period when it's gray, that's when it's going off to the internet and loading all the notes that it needs for the tune, and it's storing them in the database. And then once it's stored, you'll notice that the next time you play the tune, it's instantaneous because it didn't have to go to the internet. It has all of the notes already. So now that I've played this tune and I'm online, I'm going to go back offline. And I need to make one settings change to tell it that it's okay to use instruments that I know that these notes are available for me offline, and that's this allow instrument notes and reverb settings database to be offline. This says it's okay, you know, essentially you're saying I'm going to take responsibility to make sure that the notes for the tunes I play are going to be offline. I'm going to make sure they're there. So because we've played this tune before, I'm going to go, now that I'm offline, when I play it, now we're going to get the organ. So it plays with the organ sound. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to go back online, and I'm going to actually clear out all of the database sounds. I'm going to start from scratch. So this would be effectively like what someone would start with the first time they ever run the app. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to go into this advanced settings here, reset settings, and clear all databases. These are some tools that are available for sort of resetting everything to scratch. And I'm going to clear out the database, and it'll reload. Now, let me show you something here. I've opted in for playing the tunes while they're offline. This means that the notes for the tunes that I play have to be already stored. I'm going to show you some tools here for managing that storage. And it's very simple. It's under this Manage Notes Reverb Tune Search Database. I'm going to say Instrument Notes Database. When I click on this, you'll see it's going to be completely empty. There are no instruments loaded. There's nothing in this list here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load up that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load up that harpsichord tune. And all I have to do is just open the player. You can see how it turned gray for a second there and then went black. Just the act of opening a tune in the player loads all the notes and stores them in the database. So when I close this, I'm now going to go back into the database tools. And you're going to see that now we have the harpsichord sound in the database, and it has 36 notes. That's because there were only 36 notes needed to play that tune. So one of the things that I suggest people do is if you know you're always going to use the harpsichord tune. Now, if I were to bring up a different Bach two-part invention, and let's say it had an A flat in the tune, but there was no A flat in the database, that note would not be available offline. So one of the things that I suggest people do is if you're going to be using the harpsichord all the time, come in here and just click Load All. And what this is going to do is it's going to get every note that's available for the harpsichord, and it's going to put it in the database. Okay, so now we've got, it's going to be probably like 88 notes. So now we've got all the harpsichord notes in the database, and those notes are now available to be played offline or online. Same thing if I were to, let's clear this, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that Fantasia. So play has to go out, it turned gray, it's loaded all the notes. Now we go into the database, and you can see we have the organ and the harpsichord. And again, 37 notes, that's all it needed to play that the Bach piece, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to load the rest of them because let's say I know that I'm going to be using the organ a lot offline. And now it has all the notes for the organ, and those are now available for offline use. But I'm going to add something that actually does use a piano. I'm going to add like the coolies, which uses, you can see uses a piano and a synth bass. And when I play that one, again, I don't have to, I mean, I could play it, but just in the act of loading it, it's got no sense. And if I go into the database now, you'll see that there will be the grand piano. 17 notes is all it takes to play coolies. And we've gotten 4 notes of the bass. And I can go ahead and just load the rest of those piano notes. And the thing about this is like you do this once and you're done. That actually goes into a separate, there's actually a database, kind of like I was saying about storing the application in the browser. There's a separate database for the tool in the browser that is persistent, and those notes will always be there. I'll do the same thing, let's say, for the...
So another question here. So is all this persistent if you shut down your browser
Yes.
and you turn off your computer?
Yes.
It's still the web app is still part of the browser, even when if you're back online again. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually stored. Yeah. It's kind of like it's like your, you know, like your cookies and your passwords and all that stuff that are persistent. You know, it's like that. It's in that kind of storage. And I'll actually show you. Probably later I'll get a little more technical, and I'll show you exactly where all this stuff. For those of you who are comfortable with going into the developer tools, I'll show you exactly where all this stuff is stored.
Is there a maximum capacity of how many instruments and notes can be stored, or does it slow things down when you get too many?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't slow things down at all. I've had hundreds of instruments and hundreds of notes for those instruments in mine. There are some like system limitations that's something like, I don't know, 25% of the total available storage on your computer. But I can tell you that all of the notes for all of the sound fonts for all of the instruments is about 4 gigabytes. And in my experience, and I'm doing extremely aggressive stuff with ABC, doing full like symphonic arrangements and loading all the instruments, and I get maybe 500 megabytes stored in the browser. So you're not gonna, I don't think that's ever gonna be a problem. The other option is after you've played a bunch of tunes, let's say you use this tool for a while and you know, you have your, you know, most people it's gonna be like, you know, they're going to have the piano and a mandolin and a bass, maybe the percussion sound. They're going to have maybe 5 or 6 instruments here. You can load them all. You can load them individually, but if you want, you can just say load all instruments for all notes for all instruments, and that will go ahead and load all of them. Matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and just delete all of these here manually, just one at a time, just to kind of show you the load all in action. And let me load up something here that's a little more interesting. I'll load up, let's say I'll bring in one of my music XML crazy things here, like, okay, I'll have like the Main Street Electrical Parade. So here's the Main Street Electrical Parade. It's this. It's got like a synth bass and synth Moog synth. I'll bring in another one, and I'll bring in Mission Impossible. Okay, and now if I look in the database, we'll see, okay, we had percussion, acoustic grand piano, harpsichord, synth bass. That's what's being used in the in those tunes. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load all notes for all instruments, and it's going to walk through. Should be getting those. I'm going to delete that one. Let's try these. I'll go back and get that percussion one later. But anyway, in this case, it actually walks through now, and it grabs all of the notes for the for all of the instruments that you've had in your collection here. And I'm going to see if I can get it to load that percussion one. That was kind of interesting. So that was from, I believe that was from Mission Impossible. Play it. There I go. Grabbed it. Settings. And we should have percussion. Yeah, now we should get it. Yeah, just some, you know, the percussion instruments are stored on my GoDaddy based hosting, and sometimes it's a bit slow. Okay, now we got all the notes for all of the instruments. So that's just another option, is like after you've played a bunch of tunes using the instruments you commonly use, just come in here, click load all notes for all instruments once, and it'll get them in the database. And once you have them in the database, you pretty much don't have to think about it. They're just there. Now if I go offline, so I'm offline, I'll clear this. I'll open up, we'll open up that Main Street Electrical Parade again, and it should just play. Same thing for the Mission Impossible. I'll show you one that's just even kind of more crazy. We'll bring up, like I've got, let's say here's a Fanfare for the Common Man by Aaron Copland. Let me go actually online for this one, because I want to get these instruments. So clearly, like I don't have a, like when I go into the database now, I don't have a French horn, right? So this is like I would need to actually now go get these. So I'm going to open this in the player. You can see it takes a little bit of time because it's having to load all the instruments in this orchestral score. It's loaded them, it's turned black. Now we can play this. And so on. We could jump forward. And if I were to go into the database now, you'd see we would have a bunch of those orchestral instruments in the list. So timpani, here's French horn, trombone, trumpet, so on. And I could click load all instruments and I would get all of those for use offline. But now, because they are in the database, I will actually close the tab. I will actually close Firefox. And I will load Firefox again. Go to the, sorry, so now we're in the tool. I will go offline. Matter of fact, yeah, and then I'll go ahead and I'll open up that Fanfare for the Common Man again, and it will just play. The other thing is that the so you can see how that it just worked. And that's because once it's seen something online, that same thing will always work offline. Where you have to manage the database notes is if you know that, like, okay, I've got the trumpet notes required to play Fanfare for the Common Man, but I'm going to want to do other trumpet arrangements. I'm going to need to go get those notes manually and get them into the database. And again, I've tried to make that as easy as possible by providing, I'm sorry, I'm offline, by providing this interface here where you can just click load all for any instrument that you're interested in. To keep you from screwing yourself up, if you are offline, so I'm going to go offline again. So again, the way you know you're offline is it says offline mode right here. Certain features are disabled. So if I go into settings and manage notes, you'll see now the only thing I can do is view what's offline. I can't delete these instruments because once they're deleted and you're offline, they're gone. So I don't let you delete them when you're offline. You have to be online to delete them. That sort of covers the main use case for offline. And again, in terms of just using the tool for like ABC editing and PDF generation, when you're online or offline, that's going to be the same. The only time you have to think, the only time you ever have to think about this database, notes database stuff is if you really want to be able to do, aggressive playback or full-featured playback when you're offline. So, so for example, if I'm just doing common stuff like I want to just transpose some tunes and then I want to generate a PDF of it, that stuff just works exactly the same. There, like I said, there are some features that it won't let you do when you're offline. So for example, I'm gonna say I'm offline now. And if I wanted to share this, I can share the, I can make share URLs, I can get them. One thing to know is that the share URLs that are created by the tool, both either manually like this using the share control or inside a PDF file, point back to the original version of the tool, the online version of the tool. And in the second half of the seminar, I'm going to talk about ways that you can have it so that PDF files that are offline can play using the offline version of the tool. But by default, any URLs that get generated either by doing the share controls and like sending someone this are going to point to the online version of the tool. And that was a deliberate decision. But like I said, some features don't work when you're offline. So like shorten URL, it'll just say it's not available when you're offline because I can't talk to the site that shortens the URL. There are just a very few number of features. For example, importing MIDI files requires an external tool to use. And so that feature, if I try to open a MIDI file into the tool, like I can open ABC, Music XML, if you try to open MIDI files when you're offline, it's not able to do that because it relies on an external service. But for the most part, the 99% of the features of the tool are available offline and work exactly the same way. There are no differences. I do want to talk about the PDF playback offline because I think it's just one of the coolest things. And I don't know, probably I'm not sure for Avik or Michael, this is important to you, but it is something that I've been focusing on. And again, it comes down to the use case for the tool. I mean, I've shown you how to, that it just like we haven't been working offline, but everything we've been doing as far as the PDF generation, all of the features in the tool, we've been using them offline, online, they would be exactly the same. And I can tell you right now, it's about 90% of the people who use this tool never see this editor. What they see is the player. They're coming in from a PDF tunebook, like, like this. Here I am in Acrobat. They've gone to my website, like, I need to go back online for this. So like they've gone to my Tunebook website, and they've downloaded one of these Tunebooks from the Tunebook website, and so here's their experience. They go, oh, okay, I want the mandolin tab version of the O'Flaherty's Tunebook. So here they've downloaded this version of the Tunebook from from the website, and they save it on their computer. And let's say they go off to the retreat and they then click on that PDF file that they've downloaded with mandolin. And they go, okay, I want to try, oh, My Darling Asleep. Okay, so they click on the title and it shows up in the player. And this is how, like, that they've never seen ABC. They don't even know there's an editor here. If they wanted to edit the tune, they could close this, they'd be in the editor. If they wanted to play with the tune. But most people, their experience of this thing is just this, okay? So, but here's the problem. I told you that the PDF Tunebook links point to the online site. They don't point to the offline site. And this is a problem because if they are offline and they have a PDF and the links in the PDF point to the online site, when they click those links and they're offline and it tries to open the online site, it will fail. This will be their experience. Okay, so I'm going to close this. I'm going to say work offline. Firefox is offline. I'm going to click a link. That's what they'd see. Well, that's not very friendly, right? If they go back online, see if they're online, it's not a problem. Reload it, they get the player. So this would not be a problem if I made the online site offline capable. In other words, if I just said, you know what, I'm just going to pull the switch, I'm going to make the main tool offline capable, and that'll just fix this problem, because then when they click the links in the PDF files, they'll open in the player and everything will be great. But I've decided not to do that for all the reasons we talked about earlier. So I thought about, okay, what is the next best thing one could do? And I started looking into browse, and again, this is going to be for someone who's actually willing to jump through a minor hoop. And I started looking at browser extensions that would allow you to set up automatic redirects. And it turns out that for all of the major browsers, for Firefox, Chrome, Safari on Mac, and Safari on iOS, there are extensions to those browsers that make it very easy to set up automatic redirects. And so what I've done, and I've found, the one that I found for Firefox is called Redirector. And in Redirector, you can actually set up, I'm going to zoom this up so you can see it. You can set up rules. And I have these actually in the documentation. So if you go into the documentation, there's a whole section now. There's a whole section on playing tunes in PDF files offline. And I talk about what's required I talk about each of the plugins, the extensions for the browsers that will handle the redirect. Here's the idea. While you're online, you go to the offline version of the tool on whatever your default browser is. So in my case, it's Firefox. Once you've done that, then you have the offline version of the tool stored in the browser. You then use one of these extensions so that anytime the browser sees the online version of the tool, it redirects to the offline version of the tool. The end result of that is, so for example, here it's going to say anything that goes to, this is the online version URL. And it's going to redirect that to the offline version of the URL, but it's going to keep all of the same URL parameters. And again, I have all of this in the user guide here, showing you exactly what you need to do for those rules. Now, this is someone's going to need to be comfortable enough with doing an extension and setting this up, but some people will be comfortable with doing this. When this is in place, what happens is I'm gonna just turn on this redirector. So now what's going to happen is if I even try to go to, I'm going to just go right here in the toolbar. I'm going to just try to go to the old URL. It's going to be ABC Tools. So there's the URL of the standard tool. You can see that it's automatically been directed to the offline version. And so the beauty of this is if I'm offline, matter of fact, I'm going to close this and I'm just going to go offline. Firefox is offline. I'm going to go back to that PDF Tunebook and click the Boyne Hunt. It's now gone to the browser. It's tried to go to the online version of the tool. The extension has redirected it to the offline version of the tool, which is present in the browser, and now it opens. So you can see that redirection it allows external hyperlinks to the online version to automatically open in the offline version. And that makes offline PDF playback possible, which just simply wasn't possible like 3 days ago. And it fixes, it's like, to me, it fills in that one hole that I felt like, with and it was the main reason that I was even considering doing having a single version, was I really wanted the Tunebooks to be able to be used offline. But that just simply wasn't possible unless I had unified the two code bases and decided that I was willing to take the risk of having the offline version be the main version, which I may still do, but I really want to give it like some number of months before I feel like it's a robust enough solution, that I can sort of pull that switch. Because once you put those service workers in the browser, you're kind of not going to say stuck, but now you've got something you have to manage. And so let's say I were to make the main tool offline capable, and I used a service worker, And then I decided, I found out down the line, it's like, oh my God, this is breaking everywhere, you know, or there's some new, I don't know, Chrome update. And now all of a sudden, people who don't care about offline, again, you know, I'm seeing it's like, you know, probably 95% of the people, this may change with the PDF case, but like most of the people are using this thing online. I didn't want to take a chance at breaking the tool for everyone for the offline case, because I know the online case is stable and robust and is, you know, and it's working great. So having this just ability of using these redirector extensions for this one case sort of fills in that gap. The key being that, again, you still have to be cognizant of the instrument database. So that's why I did the demo video this morning, and that's actually in the documentation now. If you go into the docs, into the user's guide, into that section on using PDF tunebooks offline. So there's this video here about playing tunes and PDF tunebooks while offline. That walks through it, and then also this whole section here walks through it, and then there's information here about how you have to manage the instruments. Now, for a lot of people, what will happen is this actually. If they're completely like they have to go to the offline version. I'm sorry, they have to go to the offline version once, obviously, to get it cached. But I think that the experience a lot of people are going to have initially, because they won't be cognizant of the whole notes database thing, is that this setting that allow notes and reverb settings to be used offline will be unchecked. So what'll happen is, okay, we'll put Firefox offline, is they'll come from the Tunebook, and when it plays, it'll just be the piano. Which is not a horrible experience, you know, at least it does something. And then if they want to get more into the, you know, understanding about, oh, I really want to hear my mandolin offline, then they can kind of dive down into the next level. But my feeling was just like, as long as something plays by default, without them having to do anything, that was a reasonable starting point. And then, you know, if they really want, you know, to have their mandolins and their harps and all that offline, then they're going to have to take a little bit of responsibility for like making sure that you know, have to understand, oh, when I'm offline, the notes have to be stored, and, you know, here's how it's done. And, you know, maybe I'll think of better ways down the line to populate that database. But like right now, like when you play a tune, the database gets populated. Then from there, it's very easy to populate the rest of the notes from the database dialog here. Now, it's very easy to like add the rest of the notes here if you want. So, you know, I mean, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, I think, in that area. But I think the benefit of that they'll reap from diving down a little bit into it will be very, very good. And I think a lot of people will be fine just with the piano sound. So I think that covers everything related to the offline use. Like I said, I literally found out about the, like I had found a redirector extension for Chrome and Firefox yesterday and tried them out, and they work great. And then it was only like at 11 o'clock last night, I was just searching for redirector extensions for Safari, and I found that one that I'm using on my iPad, and it turns out that exact same one is the same. You download it once, and it works on Safari on the Mac as well. So I realized, like, okay, I've got all of them, you know, the major platforms, but most importantly, it works on iOS, which means that people can use the PDF tunebooks on their iPads offline or on their iPhones offline, and that was simply not possible 24 hours ago. And I go everywhere with this guy, and being able to use it online or offline for the Tunebook consumption is really, really valuable for me personally. And I've been told by someone else that the Chrome extension, if I go into the docs here, the Chrome extension, this Inzman, I've been told it works on Android Chrome as well. So that could handle that can handle people on Android phones and Android tablets who use Chrome. I don't know about the Firefox extension. That's this one, redirector. That one, I know it works on desktop version of Firefox. I'm using it on Mac. Works great. This one for Safari, same one works on. This one works on both iOS and on Mac. This one I think is, the others were free. This one is free for like 1 or 2 redirects, and if you want to actually use it for others, you can pay, I think it's $4, $3.99. So, but I was really surprised to see that the exact same plugin worked both on Mac and on iOS, and I thought that was pretty cool because it all of a sudden it was just like in my Safari on my Mac. I'm like, oh, this is great because now I've got all the major platforms covered. So, in the future, I would say there's a pretty good chance that when I feel more comfortable about the robustness of these offline web apps across the board and have a few thousand users playing with the offline version. And, so far I've had it out there in beta form for a couple, maybe 3 weeks now. And I haven't seen a whole lot of, I haven't seen any people complaining about any major issues, which is encouraging. But I do want to give it like, several months. And, by having them separate, that'll allow the people for whom it's important to be offline to play with the offline version. And if they're somewhat technical, they can, and PDF playback. And again, you can do the playback in the tool offline, as I demonstrated. There's no issues with, once you have your instruments loaded, there's no issues with playing back tunes offline in the tool. It was coming in from a PDF, from a share link that's someplace else than inside the tool. And that's where those redirect extensions were kind of like magic as far as I'm concerned. I mean, to me, they're just, I'm amazed that it works, but it does work, and it does seem very robust across everything I've tested so far on it. Thank you for sticking around, everyone, and hope that the offline use cases will be something that you'll try out, and maybe if you're so inclined, try out the redirectors and tell me if the PDF Tunebook stuff is working for you and that sort of thing. And again, thank you for joining me this morning.